Hey, Pressure Pals. Colin Tanner here alongside Steve Cuff. We both played Inside, and we want to talk about Inside. We have not uttered one word about Inside to each other other than the fact that you said, I played it, and I told you I played it. Let's do a spoiler cast. Nothing else. We have not shared our feelings. We have not shared our opinions. So we're just going to be having a kind of free-form conversation about what is this game, what's it about. We are covering the entirety of this 3-hour game. So please, if you have not played it, go away. Go away. We don't want to spoil when Donkey Kong shows up for you, which is crazy. Like, Donkey Kong shows up, Funky Kong starts rapping, which is weird, because Funky Kong traditionally is not the one that raps, but it is. I'm not sure how they worked out that licensing deal. It's incredible, and we're actually going to have some video footage of the game that's going to appear somewhere around here. But either way, if you have not played Inside, first and foremost, the only thing, just yes or no, do you recommend this game?
Absolutely, 110%.
Same here. So please, go play Inside. Available for PC. What you played the PC version, was it good?
Excellent.
I played on Xbox One. It was excellent as well. Please go do that before we start this conversation. 3, 2, 1. Inside. Of course, this was the follow-up to Limbo. I already forgot the name of the studio that developed it.
Playdead Studios?
Playdead Studios, thank you. Yeah, because that's actually what starts up. It just says Playdead's Inside.
Mm-hmm.
There's no options or anything. You just
go.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you played it through a single sitting, right?
Yep.
Same
all
here.
in one sitting. Because, I mean, it only takes about 3 or 4 hours to get through. But, oh, my God. It's kind of funny because on the Pressure Cast, I want to say a week or two ago, we talked about what our favorite games of 2016 were so far, like the first half of 2016.
Oh, the irony.
Yeah. And it's just like, oh, found my favorite a week later.
It's I don't know if it's my favorite game of the year. It's hard to figure that out right now.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that Inside is one of the best game experiences I've had in a long time. Just if you were to take all the games I've played over the past 10 years, would it make it in the top 50? Yeah. No, it's an excellent game.
It's that good.
But here's the thing. Inside, there's a story to it. There's a world inside of it. They don't communicate anything. They don't even tell you how to play the game. They don't tell you how to jump.
Let's just go.
Just go. And I think what we're going to be spending the majority of this time is sort of trying to dissect this game. We're not going to be doing the fan theory stuff. We're actually just going to try to infer based solely off the information that takes place in the game. Stuff we see in one area compared to another area and saying, what does this mean? The thing I want to start off with is the game starts off, you're the boy, and you're running and you're hiding from people. I have 2 questions. Let's start with the first one. Is the boy escaping from something, or is he running towards something? That's something I couldn't quite figure out. Is he actually, are people after him, or is this just the state of the world?
Mm-hmm. The way I took it is he's escaping something because my interpretation of the game as a whole is it's basically a Marxist allegory that's filtered through like a child nightmare, more or less.
Mario allegory? What is
Marxist allegory? So
Groucho Marx, he had a few things to say. Let's turn to the old people podcast.
The game focuses a lot on just the effects of decay and industrialization and like mindless drone workers. So throughout the game, and we'll get into this more when we start talking about the ins and outs of it.
Let's just try and focus on the boy at the moment, if we could, because I want to dissect this kid just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, he's an empty vessel for your tour of like a Marxist nightmare, basically.
But but you honestly believe he's running away from something? Mm-hmm. Like who's chasing after him?
The bourgeoisie class. I mean, that's pretty much it. You have these guys who are. They're soldiers, they're scientists, and they're like white collar workers. Those are the people that are after you, basically. And the people who help you or are just mindless drones that are sort of stuck in this meat grinding machine are all blue collar workers. Your proletariat, you've got your miners, you've got your construction workers, and then you've got these like amorphous, like genetically engineered blob people that are literally just created to be a free labor force.
Now, the reason I bring this up is because I'm under the impression that this boy is not human and that he's running towards something, that he's running towards that blob. It seems so random if you look at it. All these scenarios he's going through just to enter into this bit of flesh, this monstrous creature. I think he's of this hive mind in some ways. He's running towards that, and everything he's encountering along the way just happens to be part of the world. Just happens. I have a couple of different interpretations, but this is an active pursuit for him. If they're looking for him, it's because they know that he's somehow related to that stuff. I mean, we never get a chance to see the drones really interact with other human beings.
Mm-hmm.
They're always being surrounded by machinery that's scanning them. We never actually see the sea creatures interact with any other beings. It's always the boy by himself, which for some reason I'm under the impression that this is a goal of his. He is as mindless as the rest of them, and we're just controlling him.
I think that's a fair analysis. Part of the reason why I think he's trying to escape is because this isn't like necessarily your standard post-apocalyptic scenario.
No,
but it does show. I mean, this is the fully realized Marxist nightmare. This is what happens when this upper class completely squashes this lower class, and then what happens is the foundation of the world sort of starts to crumble away. So you're in this world where you have these soldiers and these scientists that are kind of after you or whatever, but the world that you're in it's falling apart. It's in shambles, and it's completely broken. So you're just sort of like, moving your way through this, and it shows the different segments of society, where it breaks down, and what that looks like. So literally everywhere from the forest to the farm to the factory and beyond.
I think it's worth pointing out, in case you're not as familiar with the works of Karl Marx, that we're discussing the philosophy of the individual Karl Marx, not to be confused with communism. There is actually a difference. Yeah. And then we're not talking about a Marxist nightmare where Marxism is taken over. Yeah. We're talking about from the perspective of Karl Marx.
From the perspective of Karl Marx.
What would be his nightmare?
Which, now that you say that, here's an idea. Maybe the boy is Karl Marx himself, and you're going through his nightmare.
Now we're going into that's fan theory right there.
I don't know. I think you can have a legitimate interpretation of that. Anyways,
but I do want to.
It's. Go ahead.
Okay, what I want to get to is the drones, and now there's obviously a lot of things that we can say. What do these represent? I honestly believe this game, in a lot of ways, is about the player. It's actually about video games in many ways. The point in the game where you are taking over these drones, it's haunting. It's disturbing. It's really interesting how this traditionally empowering moment, I'm all alone, but now I have friends. Now I'm in control, is followed by these disturbing creatures that can barely keep themselves together, that are moaning. It doesn't feel good. This should be the time where you're like, finally, I have comrades, but you don't. You have hive mind creatures. And there's a point in the game where you take over a drone, and then there's another headset, and you jump in, and another drone pops out, and it's like, dear God, what is this saying about players and their avatars? When you're playing a game, is there really any difference? How spooky of a feeling is that, where it's like, oh, you thought you were playing as Nathan Drake? Nope, he's just a mindless body. Mm-hmm. This is what you're actually doing whenever you play a video game. I feel like that is a deliberate statement on their part, especially when the drone takes over the drone. It's like, see, you think you're playing as the boy taking over the drone, but the drone takes over the drone just like you're taking over the boy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a really uncomfortable feeling.
I think part of the reason why it's so unnerving is it's something that we're all conscious of, but we also consciously choose not to think about it. So in video game marketing crap, they always say, oh, immersion, you got to immerse yourself. Now, immersion is a complete fallacy. It does not exist in video games. It doesn't. You're never not conscious of the fact that you're playing a game. Like, there's a circuit between person, controller, system, screen. Like, that's what it is, and you're conscious of that. But we basically lie to ourselves. We try and immerse ourselves or whatever, but that never completely happens. So this game, and it's kind of similar to that moment in the first Metal Gear Solid where Psycho Mantis he reads your memory card and he tells you what's on it, and then you literally have to interact with your system. You have to plug the controller into the second outlet,
right,
in order to beat the boss. So this is a similar thing. It's kind of calling attention to what a video game really is inside of a video game.
Well, it makes you feel far more responsible for when the boy dies, which we should talk about. The level of violence in this game is extreme.
Yeah, it's really stark, and not in a video game violence kind of way either. It's not like his arm gets blown off by a shotgun. It's just there's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
Whether it's him being tackled by a dog or just grabbed by a worker or something, it's really jarring.
I will say that the deaths are done extremely well because they don't just reinforce danger, they actually reestablish a mood. Whether you made it through without being killed or you died, it's always in service of continuing that mood. Because if you die in a game, you might be taken out for a second. They actively avoid that by creating an extremely disturbing animation of death so that when you're right back in there, it's still sort of haunting you. Just like they want the world throughout the game to continue to haunt you. They never want you to leave that mindscape. And I really admire that. One area in the game, we're going to be jumping around all over the place, but one area in the game that I found really fascinating involves something in the distance. Some sort of machinery that's creating these loud pulses that are so violent that they will actually just obliterate the boy if he's actually exposed in the open air.
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing else to say to it except for, what do you think that is?
It's hard to tell because, again, with this game, you could say that it's like a some sort of weaponized sound or something that this higher class is developing. Or it could just be the result of one of the machines. So you're going through this world where it's basically this twisted, nightmarish factory where the factory itself has almost taken human-like qualities on. So there's another part where it almost looks like a machine is breathing, and you have to kind of like navigate yourself inside of it, like you're crawling through its larynx or something.
Right.
It's really disturbing. And I think that's an extension of that, and it also serves to highlight just how smart this game is with its puzzles. And I'm talking like I haven't had this kind of high from a puzzle game since I played Portal, where I really felt like the game wasn't necessarily difficult, but it wasn't frustrating. I shouldn't say it's not difficult. It's not frustrating. It pushed itself to the very brink of like what you're capable of with the knowledge you have at that time. And then you slowly, bit by bit, are able to unravel it and figure things out, which is great. And one of the ways that it does this in the level that you mentioned with the sound pulses is the game's use of diegetic sound is like the best. And by diegetic, I mean actually occurring in the game world. So there's, just like Limbo, there's not a lot of soundtrack here. It definitely shares that lineage. But when they use sound, it's always important, and it's always linked with what's occurring in the game world.
And also that area is where you very first hear music. One of the only areas where there's actually music in the game. It's a very quiet game. And I do want to talk about the puzzles for a moment, that they are as linear gets. They are just so smart at what they expect you to do. They expect this learning process from you because they're slowly doling out this information. They're never going to directly state, this is how you drag a box, this is how you climb up something, this is how far you can jump. They know exactly how far you're going to go before you're going to get taken out, and they know you're going to learn. They trust you're going to learn. So it's a very linear experience. I do want to talk about that, the machine that's sending these sound waves out there. I think it says a lot about the world. I don't think it's a weapon. I think because we've seen so many factories around that environment, I do believe it's some sort of resource or some sort of tool, but it's destroying anything that's alive around it.
Yeah.
And it's that they've gone so far into science, because this is not an anti-science game, but this is sort of talking about like what happens when you combine technology and you lack a sense of morality.
Yeah.
You can create clones, and you can maybe create something that's generating power or whatever the hell the thing's doing, but you are obliterating life. Like life just shatters if it's, hundreds of miles away from that device, because you never even see it, and that's what the effects are. Imagine everything that was close to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that says a lot about what this world is.
And I think this is where the game diverges a bit from like classic Marx philosophy, where Marx,
pretentious man.
Marx he's obviously a champion of the working class, so Marx was like all gung-ho about industrialization, but when we kind of look at the effects of that and what that did to the world in terms of dealing with things we didn't understand, the consequences of which we didn't understand, and that's when science kind of gets ahead of where people are. So we saw during the Industrial Revolution, it was a fucking nightmare for both workers and environmental conditions, and in this game it sort of highlights that on a micro and a macro level. So it's probably towards the last third of the game or something when you experience the sound pulses that are literally destroying the world.
It's about the middle point.
Yeah, and it's cool too because during this process, there's one part where you're walking by a decrepit, broken down wind turbine.
Yeah.
So it's almost just like, oh, we used to use this, but we found this destructive thing that clearly serves us better.
Which is funny because, I'm sorry, they use a lot of, it feels like turn of the 19th century devices in the first half of the game. Technology advances as you get closer to where the scientists are, which I think is totally intentional.
Yeah, well, and again, like the micro macro level thing. So the macro level is that destructive sound pulse, and the micro level is you're on a farm and you have these like mutated pigs who are just dead and rotting and disgusting and just completely incapable of living. Like the only one that you find alive, just it tries to attack you in the shittiest way possible to its own detriment, to the point where it basically knocks itself out.
I mean, there's no sense of normality until you get to where the scientists are, and maybe they're defending themselves from something. There's always that consideration that maybe science did go too far and they're trying to reel it back in. Maybe they're trying to save the planet. Maybe they are having this giant thing that's obliterating life because of the horrors that they created. There's always that possibility, because they don't seem to be all that sinister. I mean, one of the most interesting moments for me was when you step out of one of the water environments and there's that truck, and there's a child and there's an adult, and they're looking at the truck, and if you move too early, the adult just runs up and just I don't know if I saw it wrong, but it looked like he broke your neck. Like he just pulled you down and just held you down by the neck. Yeah, which is one of the most shocking things I've ever seen. Like, and not even a didn't even stop for a second, didn't even think about it, just immediately charged. It makes you wonder who's actually in control at this point, because that does not seem like a human reaction. Yeah, like is anyone human in here except for possibly the scientists?
Yeah, and it's weird too, because I think the most humanizing moments for the scientists and the upper class people kind of come in the last half, which I'm sure we'll get into, because boy, is that fucking weird.
Yeah, we got that needs its own conversation.
But yeah, it's weird because they do have this sense of abnormality about them, and it seems like up until the last act, you're their principal concern because you've sort of broken out of this very ordered mold. But then by the time you get to the end, that sort of flips on its head, because there's this realization that, like, oh, we have bigger, weirder shit to deal with.
Do you think, talking more about the boy as a drone, which is what I think he is. I think he's the exact same as those other creepy creatures.
Well, and he fits the mold. Like, whether he's sentient or not, I think that's up for discussion, but he's nameless and faceless. So.
I don't think he is. I think you're totally controlling him, because I don't think he can die. The reason being is that they always cut away after he gets injured or blown apart, but we never actually see him die. And the best example of this is pretty much halfway through the game, where you're dragged down into the water. There's no way he should survive that. And yeah, you see like a little blue glowing thing, but we've never seen that device before. We don't know if it's actually giving him oxygen. I just straight up think that's his realization, if he can realize something, that he's not human. That this is not him.
Yeah, well, and if you take the mind control bits at a very literal level, then yeah, maybe you're an outside force that's controlling the boy. And there's actually
the alternative ending.
Well, there is the alternative ending where it's like, oh, you're literally turning the game off, basically.
I think that's just a goof. I think it's just a thing they threw in there. Maybe there's more to it, but I just took it as like, we just put this in to make you question more stuff.
So some of the framing towards the end of the game, again, like last, I wouldn't say third, but maybe around the halfway point, there's all these puzzles where, for whatever reason, gravity's flipped, and you have to like move water to the ceiling, and it's weird, but you'll see. But anyways, the framing for a lot of those shots when you're controlling this stuff, it's almost zoomed out, so you're looking through a window, which is then looking at the screen where you're controlling.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah. But again, it speaks to the idea that maybe you're just controlling another drone, basically.
But I mean, just the way that these people behave is so unnatural. Like I said, that man just charging you immediately and trying to break your neck. When someone spots you, they don't second guess it. They just charge. There's something inhuman about that. Like there is, and so that's why I think like maybe the scientists are the last bastion of humanity, and everything else is just mind controlled on some level, like some horrifying level from things that literally cannot control themselves without the direct input of another living being, to things that might have, they might somewhat be alive, but the moment that a series of sequences take place, this instinct just takes over. A complete blackout. Speaking of blackouts,
Hey.
let's talk about the use of light in this game, because first and foremost, the graphics are gorgeous. When they have a well-lit environment, the models look fine. Why are they trying to hide all the pretty models, Steve?
Contrast, man. It's gorgeous. It's like looking at you could frame a still from like 100 different points in this game. It's just absolutely gorgeous.
I mean, but what is it? I understand what Limbo was. That was a very, it's literally a black and white game. I understand that. I didn't even really like Limbo, by the way, and I love this game. So in case you're like, I didn't.
Honestly, this game it's clearly informed by Limbo. Like it's cut from the same cloth. It just takes all of the criticism that I had from Limbo. The middle of it just sags horribly.
Most of it's pretty boring. It's like, oh wow, that spider and okay.
Yeah, it's an improvement on Limbo.
It's like Wild Wild West. Like you see the giant mechanical spider, you think it's going to be a great movie. Mostly boring until you get to that great spider.
Yeah,
but I mean, they deliberately chose to use black and white or darkness and light. And I talked about this in the review, where the way that they are actually juxtaposing these ideas, nature, these underwater creatures that will kill you in a second, are afraid of the light. But if you go into the light when there are humans around, you're dead meat. Now the podcast just crashed, but that's okay. We'll just start right back up over here. No, but the idea of like light and darkness, I think it's just trying to remove any sort of sense of security, because initially it's saying hide in the dark. This is a safe place. And then not too long from then, it's like, oh, no. There's things in the darkness that will just murder you. But are they trying to murder you? What are these underwater creatures? Failed experiments? Are those children? Are they girls? I saw the hair and I assumed girl, which probably...
I think it's kind of like a siren or a harpy or something. But
totally.
I was thinking failed experiment because, again, you're in this flooded area that clearly should not be submerged in water.
Yeah.
And it's sort of this dilapidated factory or research facility or something that clearly whatever they were trying to do didn't work out for them. So again, I don't know if they were, what reason these creatures were developed for, whether it's a weapon or something else, but obviously they're just kind of running things.
Maybe that's what the boy is. He just grew up or something, because they're not trying to kill you. They're just trying to drag you below the water. Maybe they're trying to give him that realization that, no, you're the same as us.
Oh, they're trying to kill you, man.
How can you prove that? I'll prove that.
When you're in the submarine and they break the glass and then drag you out and, like, bite your face.
I didn't see the face biting because it is a very dark game. I know some people turned up the brightness, kept it exactly at that. I thought they were just pulling you out of the submarine.
Oh, no. They're definitely gnawing your face off. There's some murdering going on.
So why does that one not kill you? Why does it drag you all the way down?
I don't know. I don't know what's different about that one. And that's the part that kind of miffed me. Like, I don't understand like what made that one special compared to the others.
I love how they trick you. And I knew it was going to happen because I saw that chain and it was such a plain room communicating exactly what you're supposed to do. I'm like, damn it, I'm going back in that water, aren't I?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I really do admire the use of light in the submarine sequences. I think it's so well done. The way you point that light back and the creatures cover up their eyes.
Yeah, it's very Mario Brothers-esque with the booze.
It kind of is, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Or maybe a little Luigi's Mansion, depending on what your preference is.
That's kind of depressing when you point out that way. I mean, we should just point out...
This game is basically Luigi's Mansion, let's be honest.
We should just point out, just in terms of... We talked about the puzzle, but I love the way this game controls. It's very responsive. It's pretty weighty. I love just the feeling of pulling things. I love that you can walk around the objects that you pulled. You don't have to jump over them, which would be almost, not, too video gamey in a way to say it. I really appreciated that. So it controls fantastic. And, well, I mean, let's just get to it.
Yeah, we should probably talk about the third act.
So... I think it's really interesting that you end up in that environment. There are TV cameras, or they're cameras. They're recording something. We don't know if it's for business or if it's actually for entertainment or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And these scientists are sitting around just looking at that blob. Are they just developing more people? Well, it seems like the people they developed were failures. It doesn't seem like that's going very well for them. Maybe it is.
Yeah, well, I mean... A lot of the drones, not all the drones, they have like horrible physical anomalies, and these tend to be the ones...
And hard hats.
Yeah, well, a lot of the ones that are dressed as miners or construction workers, like the ones that clearly have like a blue collar job to do.
Yeah,
those are generally like they look the most human, not just because they're wearing clothes, but they have like all their appendages. And a lot of the ones that you see, especially ones that are like locked up or just kind of strewn about, they're not only are they naked, but they're missing appendages. They have appendages in weird places. They can't like vocalize anything. They just make these horrible grunty, groany noises. So I'm guessing these are when you've exploited the working class to the point where you can no longer exploit them. You create from science. You create a working class. You create your own. You create the ideal worker. So you have this mindless drone that can be controlled remotely, who is stripped of anything that makes them human while still retaining the human traits that you want to do the work that you need to get done. So when you break into the science facility and you see this disgusting amorphous blob with like human parts just sticking out of it, it looks like a fucked up potato.
It really does. That's
it's a really fucked up
real
potato.
Quick though, I do want to point out maybe that's a first attempt or something, because now I say it out loud, we don't actually know if these drones were ever human. We don't see, like, we see dead humans closer to that blast site, the thing that's pulsing out. But other than that, we don't really see anyone dead. So for all we know, they were human once. Maybe they died. Maybe they're brought back to life. Maybe they're just clones. I mean, we see them in these facilities where they're messed up, but we don't know if this is from an accident. Maybe they're taking the dead bodies from the blast site and being like, well, put them back in the machine.
Well, I saw the scary potato as functioning sort of like the queen in Alien.
Oh, Jesus, no.
So,
I never thought of it like that. I don't want to think about it like that.
So, yeah, basically you've manufactured this queen whose sole purpose will be to create more disgusting human blobs.
Maybe the queen is actually sending out the information to the boy to go there then.
Yeah, and that's another option, too, because that's ultimately your end game. And it's really interesting, too, because when they get this queen functioning, you see all the scientists suddenly become completely preoccupied with watching what the queen is doing.
Yeah.
And while you're in that area, you can literally run right up to the window that they're all looking at, and they no longer give a fuck about you. Like, they are completely preoccupied with the fact that they have created this thing.
Wait a minute. He takes off his clothes when he gets in the water.
What's that?
The boy takes off the clothes when he gets in the water.
Yeah. Well, I think they get ripped off of him.
I don't know if they get ripped off, but he's looking a lot like those other sea creatures. I'm just saying that's kind of another...
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the clothes get ripped off. I don't think it's intentional. I think it's because you get sucked through the bottom.
Oh, that's true.
And your clothes go. But yeah,
look, I've been to enough water parks to know that you can lose your swim shorts and just like that.
But yeah, he's a nameless, faceless blob. And then if you go up to this thing and you start to pull out the things that are restraining it, you eventually get sucked into it and become a part of it.
And I wonder though if that's really the creature's intent all along, is just like, hey, can you get back here because you got to free me and I need one more of you guys inside of here, and he's just the last one.
Yeah, so then and then you become part of the Cronenbergian nightmare potato, basically.
It makes you wonder if you ever weren't that though, because the boy at no point exhibits any real sort of intelligence that couldn't have been produced by that thing. Like, we know the thing makes really uncomfortable sounds, but that doesn't really, that doesn't presume that it's not intelligent. I mean, it's a scientific creation that's trying to create these drones that can at least recognize basic tools and things like that.
Sure.
So for all we know, that this entire time you are playing as the hive mind. Maybe that's in when you go back in there, that's the very first time you're playing as the actual main character.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the idea of kind of mind control, and
it's a huge element in the game.
But the circuit between you and what you're controlling, and like you said, when you play as Nathan Drake is just a shell.
Yeah.
So
handsome shell.
Definitely
not a potato.
Maybe think about when you're controlling the drone, who you then plug into another drone thing, and then they control a drone. So apply that to the end scenario of the game, and maybe you, the player, are controlling the drone, the boy, who then gets sucked into the scary potato monster, and then the drone is controlling the drone. I don't know. There's a lot going on
but
here.
But potentially the potato monster, that was you the entire time. You were just trying to get that one piece back together.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Because he seems to be in a lot better shape than all the other things that can barely walk or climb or anything like that. Maybe this creature is just communicating to, like, hey, this is the most able thing I have right here. And
Yeah.
and we do see at least one other child in the entire game, which is when that truck. At least, I think there was a child there. The people looking at the truck, but maybe they're controlled by a different potato thing.
Who knows? But yeah, and then you spend the last 20 minutes or so of the game sort of making your way out of the facility, breaking out as the Blob. So you blast through the research facility. You're just trying to find a way to break out, and it's interesting too because just watching how the scientists react to you.
Oh, they're
a lot of them
freaked out.
a lot of them are terrified, and the funny thing is at first they are kind of trying to stop you, but then they realize that that's a futile attempt. So you get into the scenario where they just don't want you to destroy more shit. They're just like literally actively helping you get the fuck out.
Are they actively helping you get?
Oh, yeah,
No, hold
absolutely.
on. I mean, I know there's one in particular that is. I agree there, but there's a point where they keep handing you that box to help you get through there. I think they just can't help themselves. They're like, "Hey, what do you think will happen if we give them this box?" Like they're still just observing. They're still researching on the screen. Like, "Hey, this never happened before. You want to see what happens?"
I don't know. I took it as
How smart you think this thing is?
they literally this is finally the thing that made them stop and say, you know what? Fuck, we just need to get this thing out of here. And you kind of see that happening if you go back and look at the game and you look at all the abandoned that you go through, whether it's the dead pigs on the abandoned farm or the dilapidated research facility with the monsters in the water. Like, it seems like they just abandon these things, and instead of getting rid of them, they just leave them to kind of fester.
They don't need them.
Yeah, so and,
What are they
and
gonna do
this,
with that?
This
I mean-
just seems like the logical conclusion. Like, okay, well, this is another fucking failure, and how do we deal with failures? Well, we just let it go.
It's not in the lab. It's not important. Like basically, but I mean, also it kind of points out the idea that this creature is basically just performing most of the actions you've already performed throughout the game. It's not, and so what is it?
Albeit more cumbersomely.
It's kind of funny actually, just watching him just like pick up the box and like it's got the hands. It's gonna creep out some kids for sure. I feel bad if you're a child and you played through this game.
If you're a child, don't play through this game.
Oh, do it. Everyone needs that haunting moment. Everyone needs that large Marge in their life.
Oh, Jesus.
But so there's either two possibilities. Either this thing has been controlling the boy the entire time, to which would make more sense, because I don't understand why the boy would even go there and get in the water and try and rescue it doesn't make any sense to me. But all right, fine. Maybe he's just like, oh no, I want to save Mr. Blobby. He's my best friend.
Empathy.
But when the blob absorbs you, maybe it's getting all of the knowledge from the boy to how to use basic tools. I think it's really just the hive mind's been controlling him the whole
Eat your brain and steal your knowledge.
Yeah, but it's not even like a twist. It's not like, aha, you see? It turns out the hive mind.
It's very ambiguous.
You basically just like, after the game ends, you just sit back and be like, what did any? I mean, and you keep inferring, but you just, there's not a confidence when this game ends. There's not a, yes, I get it. It's kind of like,
Well, it's a very almost somber ending too, because eventually the game ends when you do break out and you find yourself you burst through this wall, and then you're just rolling down this hill, like smashing through trees. And the final shot, the final scene here is it's just a still of the blob kind of lying motionlessly in the sun next to the ocean. So there's pretty much two readings here. Like, is this just a freeze frame and it's just basking in the sunlight? Like, that's a positive reading. Or there's the more cynical one, which is this thing is literally on the precipice of being completely free.
yeah.
And it literally dies
Oh,
inches away from the goal.
I didn't even think about it like that, but I do I want to clarify for everyone, if you're confused about if we're talking about the game D-Blob or D-Blob 2 on the Wii and PS3.
You basically I said like David Cronenberg potato, but it's almost like you're a disgusting mutant drone Katamari ball.
Yeah, no, see, now this all brings back to video games. I mean, for me, either way, that creature, for me, I don't think just based off of what we've seen so far, it's not dead. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Maybe it's more vulnerable because it wasn't that casing after all.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you spend the entire last 5 minutes of the game seriously hurting yourself. Like, you do all these hard falls, and you just hear the bones break from all the legs that are sticking out. You're the bottom of your body is covered in blood, and you're clearly hurting yourself to get out.
I don't think that's its blood.
Well, yeah, it's other humans' blood.
It's
whatever.
It should be pointed out, you only kill one thing in the whole game. It's one scientist. Mm-hmm. I've heard people saying, "Oh man, you kill these scientists at the end." It's one guy. He's right at the window.
Yeah, everybody else gets out of the way. Although
He could have gotten out of the way, by the way.
There's-
He just stands there. Like,
There's a part
you're not in 2 dimensions, sir. You can just go slightly to the right.
right when you break out. There's this part where you kind of run into like a cafeteria.
I love that. By the way, real quick, that was the E3 trailer, was just showing the cafeteria and people eating lunch. That was the whole trailer. And it was like, what the fuck was that? And then after I beat, I'm like, oh my God, that was... Because you actually hear an explosion and they turn around and that's amazing.
Yeah.
Great marketing for that. But you have to play the game to get the marketing.
You can kill a few more people in the cafeteria. Like when you run through, they get out of the way, but then you can run back the other way and smush them.
Don't do that. Let the
Not that I
scientists
did
be.
that.
They've made a beautiful world for you and me.
They were dickheads. I wanted to smush them.
When you roll down to the bottom of the hill, there's a lot of water. There's a lot of forest.
Yeah, back to nature where you started.
Is it literally where you started? I don't mean that.
I don't think it's literally where you started. I mean, it could be, but symbolically, it's the same place where you began.
I question it because we see that boy start off rolling down a hill, and now there's a large body of water out there. We don't actually know if there's anything underneath that hill because it's very limited perspective. For all we know, the boy could have escaped from the facility, gone through the woods, gone through all these stages to sneak out the other way because maybe that area was guarded or something. I don't know, but that's one way to look at it. As for the creature rolling down the hill and being in the sunlight, what exactly does that mean? What does that mean about the title? This game, everything they do has a meaning. They have that secret ending. Does that mean anything? Sure. Does that mean anything to the overall game? I'm not sure. But the game is called Inside. We kind of just have to reference it. What is inside referring to? Going into the boy? Is inside referring to the boy going into the thing? I'm sorry, I just got back from Catholic Mass. Is it referring to going inside the facility? That's where the scientists live. What exactly does inside mean?
I mean,
inside your mind, maybe, because you're actually controlling these drones. You're controlling their brains.
Yeah, I mean, in a very literal sense, you're literally sucked into the blob. You're literally going into the facility, and like you said, too, inside, as in you're controlling drones. In a more symbolic sense, again, with the Marxist reading that I came away with, I really think it's you're taking a tragedy tour, basically. This is what people do. Like when people go to Detroit to look at ruin porn. Like this is seriously.
I think it's not out of myself.
This is what this is. This is the Marxist nightmare tragedy scenario, completely fleshed out to its absolute end, where the proletariat has been smashed down to the point where there's actually new workers being created as formless blobs to take up work. And this is you kind of like taking a tour inside through this whole scenario.
True. I think this game has the ambiguity of the story. What I love about it is that you really, I mean, literally, you can't say with any sort of confidence what is actually happening. You can allude to some things, like we can say these scientists, they're monsters. What are they making here? Or, for all we know, they're not even from there. Maybe they just showed up and went, what happened all here? What's this lab? They don't know either. Maybe they're trying to fix what their prior generations have done because the world has been destroyed, kind of like global warming or something like that. They're trying to resolve this issue, and unfortunately, they still have these leftover experiments that are too dangerous for them to go outside because we don't actually see any form of defense for them. We don't see how they could protect themselves other than, I mean, there's no guns. They got a harpoon hook that stops things, I guess. I love that you can stop and actually think about this game after you beat it. And what I respect so much about it is that it's one of the most manipulative games I've ever played emotionally. Like from the offset, it just makes you. It's a very dour experience, a very depressing experience. Which sounds like, well, why would you do that? Why would you want to play a game? Aren't games supposed to be fun?
Oh, Jesus!
If a game's not fun, it's a 0. Yeah. Engagement, kids. Think about it. Go. The Dark Knight. That's a fun movie, huh, kids? But, I just like the dour experience of this title and being able to go and just see just a destroyed planet and just that. I don't know about you, but when I walk away from that game, I'm like, nothing's ever going to be okay. Like, you walk away from that game just like, well, even the one thing that I kind of slightly identified with is now just part of a giant mess of flesh that moans and screams
Sure.
and murders. Even this innocent boy that was just trying to survive at the end of the day has become part of, a greater monster.
Mhm.
It's inescapable for him.
Yeah. This is it's a great game. If you've listened to this for some reason you like having things spoiled for you and you haven't played it yet,
man.
I would recommend playing it today, immediately, as soon as you're done listening to this. I really think, especially if you enjoy Limbo and you want something that kind of expands on what Limbo started, for Playdead. If you enjoy old school games like Another World.
See, I wanted to bring that up actually. And here in the States, we call it Out of This World, son.
Whatever.
We don't call it Another World.
Anyways, if you like those things and you like movies of David Cronenberg, things like Dead Ringers that deal with ideas of identity, or if you like, I don't know, Tarkovsky's Stalker, this is a game that kind of fits that mold.
We cannot keep bringing up Tarkovsky. We always do. We do that. We do that off mic. We don't do that on the show. But I do want to talk about Another World, because I feel like that's the game that most closely resembles this.
Sure.
Well, some people would say, oh, like Flashback. It's like, no, Flashback's an adventure game.
I mean, they're both like rotoscoped, I guess.
Out of This World or Another World is a very short experience. You can complete it in about 3 hours. It doesn't explain any of its mechanics. I think they took a lot of influence from that game.
Even the enemies, like, when you're attacked by the soldiers or the dogs, they're basically just like black outlines of figures that have eyes.
Water creatures pulling you down, just like those weird tentacles throughout the game. There.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities, and you can definitely trace it back to that. It's got to be an homage.
And I mean, I think if you're listening to this, you did play the game, but I think anyone could get into this. I don't think it's a title that you can. You can't tell anybody, oh, I don't think you'll like this, because I don't think there's many games out there like this to begin with that are coming out, and it sucks that this is a Xbox One exclusive.
I mean, on the PC.
Well, yeah, but I feel bad because I wish more people would get exposed to this game. But in the same vein, if it wasn't for exclusivity and receiving funding from that, I cannot imagine any third-party publisher being like, you're going to take 4 years to make 4 hours? Or, 3 hours? Yeah, okay. Just make your... Oh, so what about online multiplayer? Oh, no? No, just sad ending? Okay. That sounds good. Hey, I like this protagonist. Can we maybe get like one of those pop figures for him? Oh, he gets destroyed and consumed by a giant bit of flesh? Okay. Who else would agree to that? It's always these first-party titles or first-party published titles.
I don't know. Now I want a pop figure of the David Cronenberg potato.
It's dude, someone's going to make like the adorable anime version of that creature.
Oh, yeah. There's going to be a plushie at some point.
I mean, I'm not sure what else there is to say. I think it's, and masterpiece is a word that I think is held in too high of regard. Like the people just, they hold the word masterpiece too high on a pedestal.
Oh, okay.
There are plenty of masterpieces out there, and this is one of them. This is an absolute masterpiece.
It's great.
You could throw all the cliches at this, a creative tour de force, whatever you want to say, but it's
don't say that.
Well, let's. I think it's a triumph of human creativity. No, I think that this is a game that clearly someone just thought a lot about what they wanted to emote, because this is a game about thinking and feeling, which is something we kind of take for granted in games, but this is a very particular mood you don't see elsewhere, and they designed a game around that, because for years we've known this game is called Inside. For years we haven't known anything about it. Really, they couldn't show us a screenshot or a video. They showed us a brief snippet of it like 2 years ago. Why didn't they get out in front of this game and tell us what it is? Because they didn't want to. They wanted you to experience it. They wanted you to ask questions. Yeah. And
it's a game that speaks for itself too.
An anti-marketing campaign for a 3-hour game, even though it's being funded by, well, not funded, but it's being helped along by Microsoft. Hats off to them. Just incredible they made this.
Mm-hmm.
And Limbo sucks.
I don't think Limbo sucks. I think Limbo's flawed. But
the only flaw with Limbo is it sucks. Everything else is good. I like the art in Limbo. That's about it. I like the hotel sign. We're not spoiling Limbo here.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, fine. I don't even know. The weirdest part about doing this show is I like to use music from the game when I do these types of things.
There's nothing you can use.
There's no music. That's what I did. Worth It episode on this. There's just no sound because I was like, what else am I gonna do?
Hey,
I don't know. Let's get out of here. I'm
bored.
Play
the Benny Hill theme. All right, man. Well, hey, thanks for having me on to talk about this game that I really like.
But what do you even? we're still talking. Like when I turn off the microphones, it's not like we're just gonna vanish or something.
We are. That's what's gonna happen.
You're still gonna be in the room.
Oh, that's true.
They're going away. We're sticking around. You should go play inside. That's it. There's nothing more to say.
Nothing else.
I said that's it.